So I will say to those who aren't with us and who are going to be watching this video in the future, good evening, good morning, good afternoon to you all, wherever you are in the world, and to our panelists there, of course. Thank you very much for graciously giving up your time for us on this Sunday. And this is the fourth video in our series of Theatre Talk Welcomes, and the second Evita celebratory Zoom panel party. So thank you very much to all of you for joining us. And as we've said already, I'm going to hand you over to John today. He's going to lead the proceedings. I will probably jump in here and there as and when I see fit. But yes, on with the show, as they say. So John, handing over to you. It's roll call time, I believe.
It is roll call time, absolutely. Well, let me actually grab my little list because there's so many of you. I have to make sure that I don't forget anyone. Here we go. And I also just brought in someone named Theater Lab 733. So I'm not sure who you are. Theater Lab 733, hi.
Okay, check more.
Okay, I think we're an audience member, but no worries. Let's go ahead and start. So we, of course, have Larry Fuller, who we're going to have go first today. And also in the room with us today, if you could just wave, give a wave. I have Lonnie Ackerman Kennedy. I have Donna Marie Asbury. I have Cliff Goulet. And I have Kelly James, Salma Stretta, Valerie Perry Lipson. I believe I saw Vincent Pirillo, Mariette Rups Donnelly, all the way from Australia, Mark Ryan from our London cast via the Netherlands, Nancy Wood, Stephen Nakami, Anthony Crivello, Larry Blank, Rob Alton, Andy Cadiff, Julie Kirk, and I believe we saw Peter Carey. And I think we have a couple of more people in the waiting room. So let's see who is there. I have a friend of mine, and then I have someone called iPhone 2 joining us. So come on in, iPhone 2. And here we go. So without further ado, I'd love to say welcome to everyone and welcome to Larry. And we would love to hear what you would like to tell us about your experience of Evita, how you came to be a part of it, and what it was like for you and what it means to you.
Well, of course, I could go on for over an hour just on that subject, but I promise I won't. Then cut me off when time's up.
Well, no, we promise we want to have you back for an in-depth another time, but for today, we'll let you know.
Okay, well, I first heard about Evita when I was actually living in Vienna and working there at the time, and it just happened that the film of A Little Night Music was going to be done from there. So I was hired on as Patty Birch's assistant choreographer, because she could only stay for a couple of weeks during rehearsal, and then I was to help put her work on film. And during that time, Hal came to me one day and he said, I just got these cassettes, there were two of them, and the guys that wrote Jesus Christ Superstar have written a musical about Eva Peron. And I remembered the name, and I vaguely remembered from when I was a little kid seeing her in newsreels. And anyway, he said, would you take a listen and tell me what you think? Of course, I was completely flattered that he'd even ask my opinion. But so I did, I listened to it and I thought it was great and very unusual. And I said to him, well, this material I think is really good, but it's going to take a very special director to pull this off, because it's not a musical comedy, or it's not an opera. It's sung through, I called it a documentary review, a series of numbers depicting one person's life. And so I said, I think you could do it beautifully, but there weren't many people that could pull it off. And he said, okay, thank you. So then months went by, and eventually, over time and corresponding with him when he left, and I was still living in Vienna, he asked me to choreograph his next show on the 20th Century, which was another stunner. I couldn't believe it. And so I packed up my bags, left Europe, and came back to New York. And on the 20th Century, I found out at some point before or after rehearsal began that he was indeed going to do Evita. And I remember him sitting in rehearsals when it was my turn and he was given a bit of a rest. He'd be working on the script. And he took all the lyrics from the concept album and made a show out of them. And then after we'd worked together for a few weeks in rehearsal for 20th Century, he asked me one day if I would like to do Evita with him. And I was like falling off whatever I was sitting on. So I said, oh gosh, no, yes. So we went to work together and we had to take all these numbers and figure out in some kind of metaphoric, poetic staging way to help tell the story, because certainly it wasn't all in the lyrics. And so we would get together every day and we'd go over one segment until we'd solve that. And then we'd go on to the next one and on to the next one, because we didn't want to repeat ourselves as far as the imagery. And I remember once on a plane to London, we were sitting together, of course, and both working on ideas and concepts and so on for the show, because we were going to London for the show, obviously. And I came over, I was reading, I can't remember which book I read, about 5 or 6 of them. The list of men, the actual men that is documented, that she had slept her way up the ladder until she got to Peron. And I said to Hal, oh, Hal, look here, in Good Night and Thank You, here's a list of the guys that come out the door. We have them right here. And he said, oh, that's great. And then I can't remember if it was at that point or some other point where I suggested that we have it revolve, so she'd be inside alone and outside with the men. Anyway, he was, I don't remember if it was still that trip, but it was possibly, because it was on a plane flight that I was sitting next to him and he was working and I was working, and I heard him say to himself, musical chairs. No, that's not good. I said, Al, what did you say?
I'm there before you.
What did you say? He said, musical chairs, for our Art of the Possible. And I said, that's a fabulous idea. That kind of kids game as to who gets the pecking order, how it gets done. And then he said, well, okay, maybe I'll try it. And then he did it with rocking chairs, which of course made it more musical. And it was things like that that I remember. I'm not going to tell them all, of course. So we were in rehearsal for 4 weeks in London, and we were working obviously very hard. We didn't have a lot of time. And because the 4 weeks included, I think, we began tech rehearsal towards the end of the 4th week. Anyway, we were working and he would come in and take a look at what I had done that day and suggest that, well, I'm not sure what that means, or what are you trying to say there, or whatever. We had, I think, one of the dancers in the London original company said there were 14 versions of What's New Buenos Aires, not the entire number, just different pieces of it. And he would also, Howard, he was so great to collaborate with, he would also ask me to come and look at his work and see if there was something that needed to be clarified. And I do remember also towards the end of, we had, most of the show was staged, and I said to Hal, Elaine Page is terrifically talented and she's doing everything we're asking her to do. But She's not bringing herself as a creative artist into the role. She's just doing what she's told. And he said, oh yeah, God, I've been so busy with all the other stuff. I haven't paid enough attention to her. So then he would take her aside every day for about an hour and just work with her alone. And we weren't really sure what we had until she got on stage, the first audience, and pow, there she was. And it was just astounding and so wonderful to see her doing that role and God singing it. So the first preview, Hal and Ruth Mitchell and I were standing house left in the Prince Edward in London, in the house left aisle. And the curtain came down on the show, and the bows had been given very little attention, if any. And I remember Hal had just said to them, well, we'll get to that later. But company, just when the curtain comes down, just the 6 people who have solo bows will leave the stage, and then everybody else stay on stage and turn you back to the audience. And then when the curtain goes up, you turn around and bow, and then everybody comes on in the order they're supposed to, and they bow. And then a full company bow, and that's it. And if you remember, the show had a show drop that did not go all the way to the prosceniums on either side. It was open like about 4 feet or so. I never did figure out why that was, but it was. And so the cast was told when the show curtain comes down, after everybody did their full company bow, everybody go upstage and off so that they won't see you leaving the stage. And so obviously they did. The audience began applauding very almost rhythmically. It was strange. And Hal and Ruth and I left the auditorium, came through the stalls bar, and went down the house right aisle to get to the stage door, get on stage. And in the time that we had left and come back into the auditorium, the rhythm of the applause had intensified. And then we saw people running, like they didn't care if they were seen coming back on or not. They just said, evidently the stage manager said, get your ass down here, we're gonna take another bow. So the curtain went out and the audience went nuts. And we had no idea whether this would work or it wouldn't, because nobody had ever done anything quite like it. And Hal turned to Ruth and I and said, well, I guess it worked. That was the understatement of all time. I loved that. Anyway, and then it worked all over the world, including New York. So I'll shut up there.
Bless you, Larry. Thank you. Thank you very much for that.
And so I promised the wonderful John Leslie Wolfe that he could go next after Larry because it is John's birthday. Happy birthday, John.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, John.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Cox and
Shall I talk?
You can go for it.
Okay, John, I'm going to follow some notes so I don't go over my 3 minutes, but
You can go for 5, John.
oh,
Go.
no.
We'll let you.
I ended up talking about playing golf with Andy Cadiff and all that stuff that just is irrelevant. I was in a show on Broadway called Saraba, which probably none of you have heard of, but Saraba, when Evita auditions came around. And of course, I'd always wanted to work for Hal. Everybody did. So we did all the singing and dancing, the usual stuff. And then for the callback, for the final audition, it was at the Schubert Theater. And you know that last bit when you're asked to just step out and talk about yourself a little bit. We were standing on the chorus line, which was a pretty surreal moment. But I was in a good position mentally because I was already in a show. So I was sort of like, hey, TikTok, I got to get to work. Even though I was dying to work for Hal, obviously. 6 of us were hired away from Sarava. And the first person I ran into on the first day of rehearsals was Mandy Patinkin. We'd gone to college together for a year at Kansas University before he moved to Juilliard. And so that was cool to work with him again. We'd done La Mancha together at Kansas. Anyway, rehearsals were, as all of you know, a daily thrill, which it always was with Hal. But we knew the show was going to be a big one, and I think everyone felt it, especially the three leads. After we rehearsed in New York, we took the show to LA first, and then San Francisco, playing to full houses. And I remember Hal telling us very proudly that the show would be fully capitalized before we opened on Broadway, which of course is unheard of nowadays. Anyway, I was in the ensemble in New York, but when after we ran for, I don't know, maybe 6 months, they were going to cast the LA company. And they asked me to audition for Che and for Magaldi. I did. I didn't get it. They said I was just too wholesome. Which, then they were
Hal wasn't wholesome.
Really?
Anyway, so then later they were cast in Chicago, the next company, and they asked me to come in once again for Che and for Magaldi. Again, I was too wholesome, but it's fine. I had a job that night, so it was cool. But a few days later, our stage manager, George Martin, came to me and said that Hal had called him and that he thought I was auditioning for the wrong part, that Chicago was already cast, but he wanted me to go to that company as Perone's understudy under Rob Alton, and they tried to get me a company later on. I thought Perone was too low for me, but they said to get with Paul Gimignani and figure it out. So I sang it for him, and he gave me the best advice any singer can get ever. He said, you're thinking like a singer, just play the scene, which I did. And then, of course, it lay perfectly in my voice, which is great advice, and I've always remembered that. Anyway, a year in Chicago with Valerie and that gang. I shared a dressing room with Tony Crivello. And then the third company came up, which was Detroit. They brought me back to New York to play Perone for 2 weeks as a vacation replacement, which I think was really my final audition for the Detroit company. Florence and Donna, Marie, and Tim Bowman and I led that company for 3 years with not a single replacement. I think I played Perone with more Avas than anyone between Chicago and New York and Detroit, because of course each company had 3 Avas. I was with Evita for 5 years altogether, and for me it was the beginning of a 30-year relationship with Hal Prince. I went on to do Cabaret, Parade, and then Phantom of the Opera for 7 years in Las Vegas, where I would once again be with Tony Crivello. And that's my story.
And the
Fantastic.
Thank you, John.
Amazing.
Happy birthday
amazing
again,
story.
John.
Thank you.
Stick around as long as you can. And
Hi,
so I would
Kelly.
like to pick on Lonnie Ackerman Kennedy next, if I may.
Okay. Hi. So I opened the LA company, surrounded by Val and Kelly and Sal. And from the first day of rehearsal, it was what I would call a once in a lifetime carousel. Oh, Vinny, I'm so sorry. My brother. There was nothing like it. If you have an experience like that once in your lifetime in your career, you're lucky. And it just kept going and getting better and better. There are so many Evita stories that I could tell. I had the greatest time with Larry when we were learning the dance to Binet. So we knocked it out in like a half hour, and I looked at him, I said, "Is that it?" And, like, to quote Alan Johnson, who once said to me, "Well, I'm not going to have you doing knee slides across the floor if that's what you mean." And I said, "Why not?" But anyway, it was just so exhilarating and fun. I was so happy to be there. But I do have a Ruthie Mitchell story. So opening night, we are just so pumped and ready. We were ready 2 weeks before. And of course, Ava was very famous for the red lipstick, right? So I'm sitting as a peasant, waiting for the film to start. And I remember I got a plastic musical note from Bobby Van and Elaine Joyce. Bobby was like the brother I never had. And he called me that morning and he said, "I don't care if you throw up before. I don't care if you throw up after the show. But for those 2 hours, you're committing yourself to that show." And I went, Okay, that was one. Now I'm committing myself. I'm sitting in the movie theater, and Ruthie Mitchell comes out, and she's happy. She's feeling happy, and she comes over to me and takes my face and plants a huge kiss on my mouth. Now, I looked up and I was so stunned, first of all, because she kissed me. Secondly, because most of my lipstick was on her face. And then she said, "Save me a dance at the party." And I looked at her and I said, "Is there going to be a band?" And she left. I hope that there was something, resembling a mouth on my face. And we did the show. And it was one after the other. We had so much fun. And of course, I met the father of my beautiful sons, and we've been together 39 years.
Wow. Fantastic.
Yes, he's cool.
Yeah, he's very.
Better be.
Yes, he is. Everybody knows him. And we're still family. We're Sal and Kelly and Donna Marie. We did it at Paper Mill, and Val, and now Stephen Nakame. We did a Crazy Fiddler together. But, and Anthony, not Larry though, blank. Yeah, it was a great experience, and hard to repeat. So I was lucky.
Well, those of us that got to see you back, in those days at the Schubert, we were lucky too. You were my first stage Ava, and I was blown away. I actually had a chance to go see the very first stage Ava when the show was in previews in LA, and I was 11, and I was, quote, not interested. So I've been kicking myself ever since, but yeah, I became interested after my dad was obsessed with the show, and so I'm very happy that we went to see you, and we went and saw you a lot. So to transition, speaking of Donna Marie, let's go to Donna Marie Asbury.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Donna.
So I did a little show called Merrily We Roll Along with the angel that is Hal Prince and Mr. Larry Fuller, who came in and rescued our company from another choreographer that was fired. I'm not going to name names. So Merrily closes, and Hal, being the angel that he was, he had a company of Sweeney Todd and a company of Evita that was going to go out on tour. And I think this man felt so responsible for, we were a very young company. It was supposed to be a hit. It was a big flop. And I think he just wanted to give people jobs. Paul Gemignani also did Merrily We Roll Along. So I remember I got a call saying, Hal would like you to audition for the understudy to Eva Perón for the third national tour. And I'm 19 years old. Thank God for youth, because, I think if I were older, I'd be going, no, I can't do that. But I was just so happy I was going to get to audition on the Broadway theater, where Evita was playing. And I remember that all of these women were there, and they had their hair severely pulled back, and they were in business suits. And, I pretty much have had the same hairstyle like for years. And I had, it was the 80s, so it was shoulder pads, and I had, the pants that went down to the ankle, and I just didn't dress the part at all. What was I thinking? And so I go on the stage, and I remember singing Rainbow High and a little bit of Don't Cry for Me. And Hal and Paul had come down to the foot of the stage. And Hal turned to Paul and said, "Can she do it?" And Paul went, "Yeah, she can do it." And Hal went, "All right, you got a job." And I went, "Oh my God," it was amazing. And John, JL, I don't think you remember, but Patty Hemingway was actually the first alternate in our company. But when we took a break, they didn't hire her back, and then they moved me up to the alternate position, which I was so thrilled about. So yeah, we did that for about 3 years, and then I did Paper Mill with Lonnie. And Lonnie is just the best trickster ever. Oh my God, she told me everything I know. And she can keep a straight face. Like she can, I just hated that so much, but she was fantastic. And then, you know, I got to do it it was the 92-94 tour with Valerie, and I was her alternate, and Larry directed. It was just really wonderful to go back to the part when I was in my 30s, when I was absolutely the right age to play it. I don't know what I was thinking, and thank God he gave me a shot. But it just, when you have a little more life experience under you, and it just means so much more. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done. It's the most brilliant show ever. I remember, and I hope nobody will judge me, but I went to go see the revival, years back when they changed everything. And I just thought, what were they thinking? It was, Hal's production was perfection. You can't do any better than that. So anyway, it was just, it was a lifelong dream to play it, and I love doing it. And it's just great to see all of it. So I'm done.
I have to tell you too, Donna, I saw you when you were 19, and you were the alternate for Flo in LA at the Amundsen Theater. And a friend of mine and I became so enamored of your performance that we would leave high school on a Wednesday matinee to go and see you. And the verb was, shall we go Elio?
Yes, that was my maiden name. Yes, Elio.
Yes, you were with us for many years as a verb.
Well, you're very kind. Needless to say, I loved playing young Ava because she was only 4 years, younger than I was. So, loved doing BA.
Fantastic. And moving on, I don't think we have John Barr with us. I think he's maybe still in transit. So Cliff Goulet, you're
Hi.
on.
Well, thanks so much. Thanks for putting this together, for one thing. It's a lot of work, and it's a thrill to see the names and the faces attached, because I've read the programs and bios of people. Everybody knows everyone who's done this for some reason. I wonder why. But I fell in love with the show hearing that White Album, the concept album, and I went, oh, this is amazing. This could be really a big hit. And of course, it turned into that. But I came sort of late to the party. Everybody, it's great to hear these stories and your experiences from day one. And then I remember walking by the Broadway Theater saying, oh, please God, someday can I be in this show? Well, lo and behold, long story short, the show closes, and my chance, you move up the ladder, you audition, nothing happens. Then it goes to Europe, and all of a sudden I got a call, oh, do you have a passport? So I obviously replaced somebody who didn't have a passport. So I had all of maybe 48 hours notice. I remember getting a call, come in, go to Capizio's, get fitted for shoes. I came back to this apartment and bounced off these walls for a good day, knowing that, oh my God, a dream is coming true. Can you fly to Rome? Yes, I did have a passport. Started rehearsals in Naples with a wonderful Kenny Ermston, who I'm sure was instrumental in getting me cast. We rehearsed in Naples on that first tour, and that was early 90s, 92, 93, the 6 months that we were there. And we nicknamed it the Ava de Jour Tour because we sort of went through several Avas, whether the vocal problems started or things didn't exactly go as planned. So we went through 3 or 4 Avas. And then again, that summer we went out again for longer stays. It wasn't all one-nighters, of course. And then the best was the Scandinavian tour that we nicknamed the Ava on Ice because it was big hockey arenas, big sport halls. So we weren't quite used to playing between 5,000 to 7,000, 9,000, 11,000 people a night. But it was such a thrill. And getting back to the show itself, the creative team, I marveled at. I would watch the show every night because I never got tired of seeing it or singing that score. And to think that Hal and Larry Fuller, bless their hearts, put together probably, to me, one of the most perfect pieces of musical theater ever put together. So yeah. I'm still passionate about it. And I would kill, of course, those days are gone. I would love to do something similar to that again, but I don't think anything like that will ever cross our paths, I'm afraid. But I am thrilled, and I'll sign off because I want to hear everybody else's stories. But thanks again for inviting me, and it's great to be part of our Evita Descamisado family.
Let me move on now. Before we do, though, Larry, were you going to throw something in there about Patty?
I was.
Yes, please do.
Now, when we were, this is a known story. It was in print in Dance Magazine around the time we opened. Patty was having vocal trouble because she really was at that point an actor who could sing. She wasn't a singer who could act. And of course, Lord Andrew, he wrote that score, which he asked the female voice, Evita, to do something that had never been asked of anybody to do before, which was, of course, to go above the usual break in a female voice around D and mix her head voice with her chest voice without sounding like she's going from, belt to soprano. And Patty just didn't have that kind of technique. Well, nobody did. Now every single woman that comes into audition is supposed to do that. But anyway, she had a lot of trouble. And also, actually at the orchestra rehearsal in Los Angeles, before we did the first opening performance, she tried to sing above the orchestra. Well, that was the vocal inexperience too. And you can't sing above those orchestrations. I don't care how loud you are. And so she strained her voice and she was out for the first two previews, and Terry Klosner was on. And she did a fabulous job because she'd never had a run through except one studio run through before we left New York. And as you well know, Donna Marie, when you first go into it, the worst part of it is off stage because you have no chance to breathe or think.
Absolutely.
And they shove you back on. And so anyway, she did a great job. And then Patty was in for opening night, and the critic at that time, can't think of her name right now, it was a woman.
Sylvia
anyway,
Drake.
Sylvia Drake.
Yes, thank you. She hated Patty. I mean, she did a hatchet job on her, kind of like what John Simon did to Liza Minnelli. And she just ripped her for shreds in every category. And 2 weeks later, we were there 6 weeks. 2 weeks later, she did another hatchet job article on her in the LA Times.
Wow.
2 weeks later, after we'd run 4 of the 6 weeks, she did another one. So she had 3, besides the opening review, 2 follow-up articles about how terrible Patti LuPone is in every possible way. And she attacked her personally, not just about her talent or how she played the role. And Patty was having vocal trouble, and there was little scuttlebutt that she might end up being replaced. And I think the writers were the ones that were pushing for that, and Hal was resisting. And so when we were leaving, it was kind of the 800-pound gorilla wandering backstage. Nobody pretended like anything was wrong. And so she came to me when we were closing in LA and going to move to the Golden Gate Theater in San Francisco for 6 weeks, and then into New York. So she said, Larry, I really, really, really would like to talk to you. When we finish tech rehearsal in San Francisco, could you stay after everybody else goes? And I said, yeah, sure, Patty, of course I will. And so we did the tech rehearsal. And I sat on stage, kind of like on the curb where the step off was onto from the diving board. And I just sat there and waited, and everybody was gone. And finally she comes out, and her hair just hanging in a sweatshirt, pair of jeans. And she sat down next to me and she said, well, Larry, and she hardly got 3 words out of her mouth. And she started sobbing hysterically because she said, I don't know what I'm going to do. This part is in control of me. I'm not in control of the part because I never know whether I'm going to make it vocally, especially in New Argentina. That's where she has to go up to the, A flat or something. Mm-hmm. And she was just so scared. And I said, Patty, listen, I'll talk to Hal. And no, don't talk to Hal, no. And he said, Patty, he's not some long bearded god in a marble throne. He's your director. He wants you to be good. He will help you. Oh, I don't know. I said, no, I'm going to talk to him. So I did right away. And within 2 days, they had found David Fossberg, who was in the ensemble and was a very well-accredited voice teacher, not coach, teacher. And so they arranged with him to work with Patty like 4 days a week. No matinees and no weekends. But by the time she got to New York, she was singing it, standing her head spinning. So it was a close call for Miss Lapone there. Anyway, that's my story.
Well, thank God for you.
Yeah, really. Yeah, because what she needed was some help, not not a kick in the butt.
Yeah,
exactly.
Oh, thanks for sharing that story, Larry. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. And I believe next on our little pecking order, we have Kelly James.
Oh,
Hello. Hello.
hi. Hi,
Hi.
everyone. Well, first of all, I was only 18 when I was cast in Evita in Los Angeles, and I had only been there maybe not even a year because I was looking at colleges and schools. I'm from a little small town in Iowa, and I'd gone to Los Angeles because I wanted to, get into the business, and I thought maybe I would go to school there. But then I auditioned for Evita, and I got into the show. So for years, when people asked me, oh, so you didn't go to college? I said, no, I went to the University of Hal Prince.
Yes, the same thing.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I don't know, for a couple of years, Hal would just always ask me, how old are you again? Because I really, honestly, I was 18, but I looked 14. And so I was right for a lot of things in the show. But first of all, I just want to say, a kid from a small town in Iowa that got to do a show like that, I worshiped Andrew Lloyd Webber. I used to listen to his double album of Jesus Christ Superstar and think one day, maybe one day I'll get to sing some of his music. But it was a master class for me to learn how to sing, because I got to listen to Lonnie Ackerman every night. And I got to listen and watch Sal Mistretta every night. And that was really, really incredible for a kid from nowhere to be able to learn from the best. I do have one fun story about Lonnie backstage. When I took over as Peron's mistress, I had a lot of time on my hands, so I just hung around backstage a lot. So one night, for some reason, there were two crew members. There was a very narrow little alleyway at the back of the stage, and these two crew members were throwing a ball, rolling a ball back and forth, trying to hit a cup, trying to get a ball into a cup. And I was like, well, this is kind of entertaining. So I was watching it. And all of a sudden, Lonnie came around the corner, dressed to the nines, of course, getting ready for a Rainbow Tour. And she said, give me that. They handed the ball to Lonnie. She whipped the ball down that alleyway, hit the cup, and went on to the stage to do Rainbow Tour. And I will never forget it. I will never forget it as long as I lived. And I thought, she never misses.
Brilliant.
And then just a couple of just fantastic. I mean, as a little kid just sitting there watching this all happen. Hal asked me, I don't know if it was because he felt that maybe I would relate to the kids, but when we were in rehearsal, Hal pulled me out of rehearsal and asked me to sit in on the children's auditions with him. So I was able to sit in the auditions at the Methodist Church in Los Angeles and helped select the kids for the show. And he said, well, you're going to be working with them. I want you to like them. And I said, okay. So I got to do that. That was amazing. So I actually, got to say, I was in a part of the audition process for the LA Evita. But then there's another wonderful story that I tell to my students now. After I'd taken over Perone's Mistress, Hal had come into town to see the show, and I wasn't too pleased with my performance that night. And I went into my dressing room in Los Angeles and threw a little fit. Took my little, pink pom-pom slipper off and probably threw it against the wall. And then all of a sudden I heard knock, knock, knock on the door. I opened it, it was Hal. He said, "What's going on in here?" I said, "Well, Hal, I didn't hit that note." He said, "One note?" I said, "Yes, I didn't hit that one note." He said, "What about all the other beautiful notes you sang tonight?" And I said, "Oh, I guess they were nice." And he said, "Yes, they were, Kelly." He said, "I want you to remember something. Please don't be so hard on yourself. I'm very happy you're here." And he gave me a hug and off he went. So I tell that story to my students now in my studio when they're having a problem about maybe one note in a show or one note in an audition. I also want to tell one other story about being one of the kids in Evita, and during the "Please, gentle Ava," when we come out with the candles and we're in the choir robes, we were having a problem. We were coming off the stage and running all the way around to the hallway to get changed into our choir outfits, and we weren't making it. This went on maybe 2 or 3 times, and we couldn't make the change. And finally Hal said, "Somebody," on the God mic, of course, "somebody fix this." And there was just silence. And I raised my hand and he said, "Yes." I said, "Hal, if you could take the hook and eyes off the front of the robe, choir robe, and put Velcro there, and take the buckles off the Mary Jane shoes and put elastic there, I think we can make it." Silence, and then all of a sudden he said, "Somebody please do that." And from then on, we never missed it. We never missed that entrance. But the fact that he trusted me with that, well, I had lived with drag queens, at that point. So I was well versed in a quick change. I mean, really quick, So I just want to say that, this is the show that changed my life. It brought everything to fruition, all my dreams, all that dreaming of being an actress and doing something wonderful in my life when no one before me had ever done that where I come from. And I have to thank Hal for that, because he trusted me to be in that company, and just, gave me the treasures that I carry still to this day. I still hear him in my head, and it's still one of my favorite scores and one of my favorite shows. I also shared the University of Hal Prince with Jason Robert Brown, and I said, "Do you ever say that you went to the University of Hal Prince?" And he said, "The only degree I got from Hal was the 3rd degree."
Brilliant.
And there's my story, my fellow Evita, beautiful, wonderful from around the world.
Oh, that was fantastic, Kelly. I still remember when you went into the show and they had that picture in the LA Times, a new mistress. It was very exciting. I was like, "Parents, you have to take me. There's a new mistress."
Once a Perone girl, always a Perone girl.
Exactly. Is Sal Mastretta in the house?
Yeah.
Hi, Sal. Would you like to go now?
Sure.
Awesome.
I don't know where to start. Larry and I had worked together on the 20th century.
John, can I speak to Lonnie?
Sure. Hey, Derek, we're actually going to do an audience Q&A at the end. Would that be okay if we held your questions till then?
Okay.
Okay, we'll open it up at the end. Thanks.
Hi.
Thank you, Derek. Larry and I had done On the 20th Century prior to Evita, and it was going out on tour when it closed. And Paul Gemignani came to me and he asked me, he said, "Why are you going to audition for Evita? You're so right for the show." And I went, "No." And he looked at me like I had, "What?" And I went, "Well, you know, I mean, I said, what am I going to do? Go from one chorus job to the next chorus job to the," I said, "No." I said, "You've already cast the only role that's right for me." I said, "It's Magaldi and it's cast. So I'll just stick with this and we'll go out on tour with Rock Hudson, you know?" And he kept bugging me and bugging me and bugging me. Finally, my Sicilian went up and I went to my music and I went, "You know, man," I said, "let me find something that's similar to 1,000 Stars." And I decided to use well, I guess 1/3 of that huge song, "Begin the Beginning," and then went up to like a high B flat at the end of it. And so that was it. That was, you know, and so they were all over me about it, and then they persuaded me to do it. And I was so thrilled finally to make that decision, because what I was around from the beginning of that show was unbelievable. To see it structured, to see how they went about it, to know that it was already done in London, and yet this had such a life of its own. And then we did the tour in LA, and then we went to San Francisco. But Larry, we did the Orpheum, not the Golden Gate. We did the Golden Gate.
Oh.
Okay. And I remember, and because that was where Hal handed me Sweeney. And during a thing, he said to me, you know, I thought he was going to do something with Evita, and he says to me, "I want to talk to you." And I went, "What?" He said, "Sweeney Todd." I went, "Yeah." He goes, "I'd like you to do that." I went, "Okay," you know. So that was way down the line, and what we had Evita to deal with to go into New York and everything else. So I had all of this going on in my head. So we get to New York. We play it. I play it for what, September, October, November. And I get a phone call saying, "Come to the theater. You know, I want you to do Magaldi on the National. And we're going to open at the Schubert in LA. And Lonnie Ackerman is going to play Evita. And I'd like you to come to Patty's dressing room at the Broadway and meet her." So we have this great, I laugh at it every time I see it, this picture of me on one side, me in the middle, Patty and Lonnie, and it's all nose. Not Italian and Jewish noses. It's very funny. Anyway, we get to LA. It was terrific, but I had already gone on in New York, and I was really just sitting in the stalls at the church. And Ruthie Mitchell comes up to me, and I had done the sort of vanguard, I call it the boat of the Aristocrats, if you remember that sequence. And I had that 3 foot what was it?
Cigarette holder.
Cigarette holder. And so I felt like the prow of the boat. So she comes up to me and Ruthie says, would you mind staging that? I went, "No, sure." You know, so I did that, most of that.
Oh,
and it was so much fun. And then we opened, which was extraordinary opening. And Lonnie was on fire. The whole cast was on fire. And we were well received. There was no Sylvie Drake. The only thing Sylvie Drake pissed me off about was that my billing was like this big, right? And because she was so terrible to the show before, they put a good quote of hers in that poster. So my billing became,
Okay. Can I talk about you now?
Man. Well, anyway.
Sal, have you ever seen my billing on the 20th Century poster? You need a magnifying glass to find it.
I'm looking at it. You're right. Anyway, so all of that, but the journey was so extraordinary for me. And then he took me out of that, Hal did, and put me into Sweeney, which was unbelievable. And then when that was over, they put me back into the tour with Val in '92. And I kept doing these Evitas on the side. Like we did one with Tim Bowman and who was it? Darren Altai in Balboa Park, that theater that's where the airplanes go over.
San Diego.
The Starlight. That was the
Yeah,
Starlight, right?
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, but the whole experience was really extraordinary. I know it was for all of us, but this was something I felt so akin to, and I understood it. I understood the role. I understood how to do it. I was doing nightclub work on the side, and it felt like I walked into another nightclub every night, you know. And anyway, and I got to meet such great people, and here we all are, you know, and all with the same heartfelt memories of it. And it was one of the highlights of my life and my career. And now that Larry lives here in Palm Springs, and I see Lonnie when she comes out, I go in. It's just great. So
And Val,
Lonnie,
too.
can you hear me?
and Valerie, what?
Lonnie, can you hear me?
Sorry, go ahead, Sal.
Hear you.
Anyway, so the whole experience that I started with Helen on the 20th century, and really ended with another version of Evita, that was like 5 or 6 years of my life. It was terrific. And he'd bring me in to New York to audition for stuff he was doing. Never got it, but nonetheless. And going to that memorial, by the way, was quite amazing on last December for his thing at the Majestic. That was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So thank you, Helen Prince. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Lonnie. Thank you, everybody. Valerie, John Leslie, too. We had such a good time, and Kelly and Donna Marie. Tony Crivillo, all of us were just babies, really. I mean, I was 30. I think I was 33 at the time, you know, and I felt like I was just walking through a doorway to something brand new. And I had been working since 1965. I had my equity card, you know. So it's like, wow, man, what a journey. And I'm sure all of you have feelings like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Embrace
Yes.
and it's an energy source for me. Okay, that and a good pasta sauce. Yeah. Anyway,
Sally, thank you so much for that. I think a lot of people share those feelings. It was just such an amazing production, and wherever it popped up, it had its own energy. The show in London was so different from the show in LA and the show in New York. It was incredible. And before we move on to our next speaker, I'd just like to remind our audience, we're so thrilled to have you here, and we're so thrilled with your enthusiasm. We promise we'll get to your questions after everybody's had a chance to go from the cast. So if you'll just sit tight with your questions, audience members, we will get to you in the next portion of our show. So with that, I would love to go to Valerie Perry-Lipson. Hello. And you have to unmute yourself, Val.
Am I unmuted now?
Yeah, we can
Yes.
hear you. Yes.
We've
Good
got
job.
you.
Yes.
Oh, hi, everybody. So great to see everyone. Oh man, this Evita was just absolutely the most incredible thing to ever happen to me, particularly because at the time, I was 22, I didn't even have an equity card. I was asked to audition for the show from an agent that I was working with that I wasn't even signed with at the time. But he said, go in and Joanna Merlin wants you to sing for both the Misfits and the and Ava. And it was the Los Angeles company with Lonnie. And anyway, I went in and they didn't have my name on the list when I went backstage to go in for the audition. And I said, you know, I prepared both roles. I need to like sing one of them, please. So the fella who was doing all of the ushering in of the auditionee said, well, just hang out here for a bit. And when we have an opening, we'll bring you down. And so I did. I for quite some time, and then I went down, and all that was there was Paul Gemignani and John David Wilder, who was the one who was bringing us in. So I walked on stage. I was so scared. I mean, this was the biggest thing I had ever auditioned for. And I remember Paul said to me, well, what are you going to sing? And I said, well, I'm told to prepare both the Mistress and Evita. And he said, well, you can only sing one, so choose one. And I went, Evita. So I did. I sang that, and he walked up to the foot of the stage and he said, man, you're the first person to come in here today that I wasn't afraid was going to lose her voice when she started hitting those notes at Rainbow High. So he said, come back next week and sing for Hal. And that just scared the bejesus out of me. But I ended up coming, and it's funny because the first time, Lonnie, I don't know if you remember this, but the first time that first audition, there were all these like celebrities coming in to audition for it. And the second time I came back, which was the following week, it was only Lonnie and I. So it was very comforting to know that I was in her company, because I had always heard her sing at different LA auditions and always would say outside the room, who is that voice? That is so fantastic. Anyway, I decided that I wanted to do something a little different for the audition, because I figured I didn't really have a chance in the world. And I remember singing first Buenos Aires, and I was in a dance skirt, and my hair was long and stringy, and I had character shoes on, and I sang Buenos Aires, and then Hal said, will you sing some Don't Cry for Me, Argentina? And Lonnie remembers, you wore a white suit. I said to him, can I change? And he said, yeah, sure. And I went off to the change room at the Schubert Theater in Los Angeles, and I put on a white suit, and I put my hair up, and I put a little lipstick on, I put heels on, and then I walked out on the stage, and I asked the stage manager not to announce me. And as I stood out there, Hal turned to Ruthie Mitchell, and he said, well, who's that? What happened to that pair? And so the stage manager ran out and he said, Hal, that is the Perry girl. And so he says, oh, honey, go ahead and sing it. And the rest is kind of history, but it was such a sensational time. And as Donna Marie had already said, Lonnie was a real prankster. And he taught me everything I know, including to put eyelashes on, which I had not a clue when, wearing false eyelashes.
My baby sister.
Yes.
And then my real baby sister over at Kelly and Donna Marie. Like the old woman in the shoe.
It was so great, and I learned so much from her, because I used to watch her shows. I did all the matinees, and I used to watch her shows, and ironically, when the Chicago company came about, it was Lonnie that told me I got the company. You remember this? It was at Catalina Island, and my phone rings, and it's Lonnie, and she says, so did you hear? Did you get the call?
Big mouth.
Chicago. And I said, oh my God, really? How do you know? She knew everything.
They all find me. How did they find me?
That was that sensation. But I was going to say, and then I worked with Rob and John Leslie and Tony. Tony was the understudy for Che at that time. And he actually had double duty one night, because I don't know, Tony, are you still on?
Yes, I'm here.
You remember this was a very interesting evening. John got ill, and he got sick in the middle of The Actress Hasn't Learned the Lines You'd Like to Hear. So I started off with John singing all of Che during that entire show until it came to that part. And once I said disappear, and I had my arm up, all of a sudden there was this very, very long pause. And in that time, they had been stripping John of his chair and putting it on Tony. And time I put my hand down, it was Tony's voice that I heard.
Oh,
How cool is that?
I remember that very well. Walking on stage, and it was Jack Gaughan conducting, and Jack had taken the orchestra out, and because it was like, what's going on? And I came out, and Jack saw me. He nodded his head with a smile. Oh, and the first line I have to sing was, "Forgive my intrusion, but."
What a clever transition.
Perfect, perfect.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, it's John Herrera.
Yes, we
Not
knew.
me. Not me. Not the other Johns. There's several Johns here.
John Leslie.
Yes.
That is crazy. I love those mid-show swaps.
And it happened. It happened in LA. I mean, it's one of those things, but it's fun. Anyway, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. And I think I've made a career out of doing Evita. I think I have. I mean, Larry had hired me many times after that production he had directed. And it's been a family. It has been a family. And man, I have so much love in my heart for the whole process and having the opportunity to do this show with everybody.
So great to have you. Thank you, Valerie.
We're here.
Thanks, Val.
And now if we could hear from Vincent Pirillo.
Yay!
Are you with us, Vinny?
I'm here.
Great.
I actually started out in the ensemble, and I remember it was a cattle call. I think there were about 600 tenors or something. I don't know, 600 guys auditioning for this, and I came out and sang "Somebody da, 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 Being Alive." And I think I'd put it up, or somehow I ended up on a B, and Paul Gemignani says, "Oh, that's a B." Of course, I must have perfect pitch or something. And he said, "Can you sing a C?" And I said, "Yeah." Thank God he didn't have me sing it. I learned to do it. I mean, I had it, Larry, but Larry Blank, he's looking, yeah. But I, under pressure, you don't want to do that. And so
it's okay in a group. Yeah.
Oh God. So I was Mark Sire's replacement in LA after Sal and Mark Sires came, and then I replaced him, and then did a year and a half with the third company with Flo and Donna and the Easts and John Leslie. Oh my God, Marky's there. You remember Marky? I don't know.
They're at my house.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's little Marky.
Mark was one of our kids.
Like 6'3" or something.
Hi, everybody.
McGaldy's only on for like the first half hour. And then you've got an hour and a half to kill, except for that, which I did miss once. Anyway, and so when we were on the when we were on the tour, I was sort of the school marm or something. I don't know. I helped him with his homework, and that's what I did in the second act.
And you made me what I am today.
Look at him. He's a father. Now I have to show you something that I have saved from the production. Hal wanted a little woman to be pushing around these big, tall guys. Well, I'm just over 5'6", and so not ideal. So they made special shoes for me, and here they are.
Oh, wow.
And
Look
2
at those.
inside, so like 5 inches. 5 inches.
Wow.
I remember in New York, Ruthie saying, "You better, if you don't learn to walk in those shoes, I'll take them away from you." That's
It's so funny. The first time you went on in those shoes, you were a little wobbly on the rake stand. I remember you going to the microphone and taking the guitar, and the shoes were kind of like, I said, "You're really tall. How do you get so tall?"
Oh God.
Horrible.
Alani, I remember one time when we have that duet, you know, I think you just kept looking at one of my eyes.
Oh my God.
You remember that?
Remember that. Beloved, who is passed, David Romano, was giving you a tutorial on opera makeup.
Yeah, that was horrible.
And it was elaborate, except what happened was he came out and we're sitting at the nightclub table, and I look at Vinny and I think something's weird. Oh, he has eye makeup on only one eye. Nothing. I mean, it was extraordinary, and the other eye was just Vinny. That and the high heels were just, I was done. Yeah.
I thought it was a drag act.
You were so cute. So it's kind of a horror story. So the balcony scene, Donna will know, Valerie will know, all the wonderful women who have done Ava will know. There's a staircase in the wings, and you stand there, and until the door opens to the balcony, and then you go out and you do Argentina. I will preface this: I do not like heights. Okay, and the balcony, the band, or whatever you call it, the railing, it was not waist high, it was thigh high, which throws your equilibrium up a little bit. Okay, so one night we had been running for, I would say, almost into the second year, and my dresser, Mary B, ex-dancer, 4'11", full of energy, great friend. I'm standing in the dress on the stairs, and I knew there were like 11 Evitas, Evita, and I felt my palms starting to sweat, and I thought, I can't go out there tonight because I'm gonna fall off the balcony. And your mind, one side of my mind is hearing Evita, the other side is saying, really? You're not gonna go out there? And so I turned to Mary and I said, I can't go out there tonight. And I was obviously known for being a trickster and having fun, and she thought I was kidding. So she kind of blew me off, and I'm hearing Evita, and now I'm starting to panic. And I said, I am not going out there tonight. And she saw the panic in my face, and she said, yes, you are. And Evita, I knew there were 3 more. And I looked at her, I said, I am not going out on that stage tonight to sing that song. And with that, this little thing hauled off and smacked me across the face. I said, and I went out and looked to death, but sang the song and came back. And there were stagehands in the wings who were like, oh my God. Her dresser just smacked her across the face. I had a handprint on my cheek for the rest of the show. She had no choice, and we laughed like crazy for the rest of the show. But it's the God's honest truth. There was. She had no choice. That's my story.
That's amazing. I mean, isn't it funny how a performer, you can be in your run, your
Oh,
and
yeah.
you have that moment because your brain just goes, wah, because you're not.
Oh, yeah.
Opening night. It wasn't opening night. It was way into it. I
Yeah.
blame
Yeah. That's the magic of theater and the magic of brains.
Now be quiet.
Oh no, we love this.
No.
Thank you for sharing it. Hey, is Mariette still there from Moon to Mines in Australia?
Yes, hang on. Yes, I'm here.
Hello, we would love to have you give us your scoop from down under.
Oh my God, I can't. After that story from Lonnie, what can you say? I mean, that's amazing. And I am going to go online to those YouTube videos and have a look. I have to see you perform, Lonnie. It'd be wonderful. It'd be wonderful. There's so many stories. Was interesting, Vince, to hear you talk about height. I had done a chorus line. I played Val, Tits and Ass, in a chorus line here in the original company, and then I'd taken over as Elizabeth Regis in Annie, and I was doing a couple of cabaret shows when they asked me to audition for Evita, and I knew one of the producers really well, and he came up to me and he said, "Mariette, wear flat shoes." He said, "You're too tall, darling, you're too tall." And he said, "You have to wear flat shoes." Well, I didn't have flat shoes. It wasn't, nobody wore little ballet flats then, So I had the tiniest heels I could find, and I sang. And I don't know that they ever considered me for the first Evita. I went into the original Australian production as the alternate, and I don't think I was ever considered for whatever reason, but that's okay. One of the interesting things was, and I think you were saying, Larry, that when Terry went on for Paddy, when she was having vocal trouble, that she hadn't really run the show, and that was a real challenge, being the alternate. I don't know if the other alternates had that, but we had all the rehearsals, and for some reason I was required to dance in the show. I wasn't sort of just playing. Yeah, the eyes, Donna, widening.
Carey did
Apparently,
too.
Who did?
Carey was also a dancer in
Really?
the show.
It was a shocking thing when you think about it, because you'd be in the matinee, you'd be up there on the balcony with everybody screaming out Evita, 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 and then in the evening performance you'd be down going Evita, Evita. I mean, it was psychologically and emotionally really damaging, I think. It was I mean, they say there's the curse of the white dress. Maybe I suffered from that, but to go from sort of all the power of playing that role, and then suddenly to be underneath the balcony waving and smiling, but I didn't get much rehearsal because I was learning Buenos Aires, and all the dances. Well, that was the only real big dance, but I was learning all the other bits. And I remember sort of stamping my little foot about a week before we opened, because we opened on a Saturday and I was going on the Wednesday matinee. And I said, these audiences, I knew the stage manager well, and I said, these audiences are paying money, and I have not really had a rehearsal. I've been working with the understudy every night at home. We go home and we try and remember what was being done and practiced it and everything. But, how can I do that? That's not fair. And I don't know how happy Hal was about it, but they called a whole company rehearsal in for me to have a dress run. It wasn't a complete dress run. It wasn't with wigs, and Hal was there. And I think I got to the first broadcast and I did that, and he stopped me and he came up and he gave me a note, and I did it again. And all he said was, "Thank God you're an actress." And then we worked. I mean, then it was amazing. After that moment, it was wonderful. And I remember in that rehearsal, and I never forgot it, he said to me, just before I did the walk on, because it was a rehearsal, there were no stairs there, Lonnie. I was walking on, I think, on milk crates to do Don't Cry For Me, Argentina. But he said to me, and he may have said it to all of you, I don't know, he said, "Mariette, this is Cinderella time. This is everything she has ever dreamed of, and it's coming true. Never forget that. And of course, you know, all of us who end up working as performers, we dream of this. And so it was such an easy director's note to pick up because it resonated so much with who I was. And playing this role, this was Cinderella time for me. This was extraordinary. So it was something that always stayed with me. And I ultimately took over the role when we opened in Adelaide and we went to Perth and then we went to Melbourne. I got married in between the Perth and the Melbourne series, what is it, productions, and then we came to Sydney and Jennifer Murphy, who was the first Evita, who was fantastic. She was really tiny, little dynamic, very much like Elaine, you know, that very little punchy, dynamic woman. She was having vocal trouble, so I took over the role in Sydney, and then no plans. Of course, I didn't plan this, but I don't know that the producers ever believed me. I got pregnant. So it was like, here I am playing the role of my life, and I'm pregnant. And there's this wonderful woman in Australia called Jill Perryman. She is sort of the mother of us all. She is a great star and a musical star. And when in Australia, we always used to bring people from America or London to play roles. When Funny Girl happened, they gave her Funny Girl, and she was just amazing and has continued to be. She's still alive. I got to work with her ultimately in Side by Sondheim. We did that together. But her husband was in the show. Larry, you might remember Kevin Johnson. He was he took over as dance captain. He was one of the the leading male dancers.
The two guys.
Yes, the gauchos. Thank you. Yes, he was one of the gauchos. Well, because it was in the show, Jill was there and she looked at me and she gave me a big hug and she said, Mariette, this will be the best thing that has ever happened to you. She said, I know what you mean. She said, when I got pregnant, I thought, oh my God, what about my career? And she said, you know, I wanted to jump off tables and throw myself downstairs. But she said, this will be the best thing that has ever happened to you. And of course it was. And then I did the show till I was 5 months pregnant. And when you look, and then Patty came out and took over. She came out while I was still pregnant and took over the role, and I went back to being alternate. But yeah, if you look at the photos, you can see, you know, there were some glorious photos taken from the front follow spot by a lovely lady called Julie Anderson. And walking on in when I met Perron, you could see, she took shots from above and you could see my boobs, you know, you could see in the dress when I wasn't pregnant and certainly when I was, and the same in the big white dress. The same in the big white dress, they had to expand it at the back and you could see that I was just a little larger. But I was really lucky because something like, that was 1980, 81. And then in 1994, I was asked to do it again in Perth. And to get that opportunity was so amazing. By then I was 41, so it was not easy. And I remember doing Buenos Aires in one performance and thinking, here I am up front of all these dancers who are half my age, and I'm the stupid idiot singing as well, and wondering what on earth I was doing to myself. But it was wonderful to get the chance to do it again with a very different cast and actually a very different production. Though Kevin Johnston, Larry, was there and he recreated all the dances and perfectly. He, you know, a magnificent memory for dance or for everything really, Kevin. And it recreated all the beautiful, the military and the aristocrats and Buenos Aires, and everything was perfect. But it was wonderful, just such an opportunity to get to do this amazing role again. And for me to sit here in a little country town in South Australia and look at all of you is so incredible. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Arielle, thank you so much. And thank you for getting up so early.
Wouldn't have missed it. Wouldn't have missed it.
You're too kind. You're too kind. I promised Mariette and Larry that we will do a civilized hour for Aussies if we can get some Aussies together. Is Mark Ryan still with us? Mark Ryan.
I am still here, yes.
There he is.
Here he is.
It's now a draw. It's 1-1. England, Italy, 1-1. You are
Thank you.
competing with the European Cup, just so you
Thank you. 1-1 England and Italy, Barry. 1-1.
Yeah, 1-1 at the moment. Tension. The tension is palpable in the house.
Well, Anthony Crivello and we are pitted against each other in the NBA championships tonight.
I'm Milwaukee.
Yeah, go Phoenix. You see, I have my purple on, don't you?
What would you like to know?
So tell us about London, Mark.
Well, the journey started for me in Manchester. I was doing panto in Manchester, sort of the mid-70s, when the first album came out. And the album, the Don't Cry For Me Argentina, was #1 for weeks. I mean, like 12 weeks in the UK. It was up there for ages. And for those who don't know what panto is, of course, it's a Christmas time show. So it was all throughout Christmas. It was Don't Cry For Me Argentina. And
excuse me, Mark, but can one believe that would be the hit song?
Oh,
right.
Sorry.
Where did that come from? Anyway, sorry.
Well, there are many things about this. Look, I'm an adopted American. As I say, I partly live between California and here. But for my American chums, you've no idea the pressure that was on at the beginning of this journey, before the show was really even put into somebody's idea of putting a show on. There was this album with this weird song, Don't Cry For Me Argentina, which nobody really understood or was interested in. And somehow it had made this huge splash. So there was a huge thing already going about who was going to play this woman, Eva Peron, that nobody in the UK had even heard of. Honestly, nobody knew. I did not know who Eva Peron was. Anyway, we're doing panto, and so he bought the album, and I was a big Tony Christie fan. Tony Christie, I started out working the Northern Club Circuit in Britain, which is the hardest place you do cabaret touring in the clubs up north. And Tony Christie was a huge star up there. And I used to go around and steal his act. I'm not being funny, I stole his arrangements. And so when he came to Manchester, it's absolutely true. When he came to Manchester to actually do a show, I literally bullied the cast into going to see him do his show. And he was brilliant. He's like Tom Jones, but just was slightly, got a little bit different of an edge to him. Did the thing. And somebody said to me, well, there's only one person that can play McGaldy. This was 1970, I don't know, 5 maybe. Whenever the album came out, and it was #1. And the only one person that could play McGaldy, because you're the biggest Tony Christie fan in the world, it's got to be you. And I went, yeah, well, we're a long way from even getting a show on a stage, let alone anything else. So in between all this, I go back down to London. Peter Carey is still here. Peter Carey and I were in the other landmark show that nobody ever remembers. It's called Dean, in the same theatre when it was called the Casino. So Peter Carey and I were both in Dean in the same theatre that then became the Prince Edward. And Ronnie Cass, my then manager, he just said to me, I want you to audition for this show, Evita. I went, yeah, I've sort of heard the album. And I want to get you in front of Harold Prince. Now, I know this is going to sound weird, and Larry, don't tell someone. I sort of knew who Harold Prince was, but it really wasn't something that registered in my radar. And so I kind of went, oh, sure, all right. I'd been through other shows, I'd auditioned for things and got them. And so I was like, all right, fine. And Ronnie had this arrangement that we'd done for Old Man River. And he said, this is what I want you to sing. And it was a jazz blues version of Old Man River. And we went in, Ronnie played it, and I just wasn't freaked that Harold Prince was in the audience at all. I was actually very chill about the whole thing. And we finished, and Hal stood up, and in the immortal words of Harold Prince, he said, you are my McGaldy, And that is the most amazing arrangement of Old Man River I've ever heard. So Ronnie Cass, who played it, was a writer in his own, it was a famous writer in his own world. The first thing, we walked off the stage and he turned to me and went, "That was a super arrangement. Harold Prince just told me that's the best arrangement of Old Man River." And Boss Wash met me and he went, "We'll talk. So we'll work it out." And so that's how that journey all started. And I've said publicly, and I'll say it again here in front of Larry, because I mean it. I was in the lucky position of McGaldy of being able to sit back and watch and observe and learn, which I did. And I got some stick from Hal. I really did. He made life for me very difficult. There's a lot of things going in the background, but he really gave me an education in theatre. So I got a chance to watch, and I watched the way that Larry put these numbers together. And without doubt, the reason that show is so unique and so today, still, if you ask me to go, that version, the black box, where everything comes out of, is still the classic and is remembered, is because of your staging of those numbers.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes, yes.
Now,
Thank you.
I've said that, and when people say to me, I said, Larry is the unsung hero of the staging of the clumps. And if you remember,
yes.
the word,
Yes,
they
so
had
true.
T-shirts with clumps on it.
Take it from clump 3, please. Yeah.
I tell my students the story of the clumps, and they all know about clumps now. They know.
That staging literally, I think, held the whole glue of the show together. And
Yep.
it was interesting because I was in contact with Hal just before he passed away. We emailed backwards and forwards quite a lot. And the most important thing to him was that the people in his office were absolutely dumbfounded that somebody that he had worked with and educated through Evita was actually now Bumblebee and was a transformer and had done all of these different films with me. My young staff are very impressed with the fact, not with Evita, with the fact that you're Bumblebee. And I was like, yeah, that's another thing I've got to carry. But the pressure for that show to work during that build-up to the rehearsal period, to it opening.
Hi there, can I say something to Valerie?
Was colossal. So anyway, it was genius. It was absolutely a work of genius. And I said to Rebecca Storm the other night, we were just messaging backwards and forwards, and she said, it opened a lot of doors for you. And I said, yeah, and it closed a lot as well. And I don't mean this in a negative way. I meant that experience of working with you guys and Hal and opening that show, that's never going to happen again. It was a unique opening and a unique chemistry, all of that with Elaine and the pressure that was on her and everything else, that you're only going to go through that once. And I knew that. And then luckily enough to get transitioned to Shay, which for me, the best vocal role I'm probably ever going to get in the West End, it closed that door. And I got some advice from Elaine, and she said, don't do a musical thing next. Do something straight. Do if you can, do a part of something. And along came Robin. Well, Who Dares Wins, and then Robin of Sherwood. So to me, it was a show that really can't be bettered as an experience for an actor singer, and probably you just have to put it in its magical box in a way, and go, that was of its time. It was an amazing piece of work. I'm honoured and humbled to have been a part of the whole process.
Me too.
Me too.
Everyone agrees. And did I see Wayne Scherzer? Are you here, Wayne? You have to unmute yourself, Wayne. Hang on, let me see if I can help you out. There we are. Let me see if I can do an unmute on you, sir.
Thanks for sharing that with us, by the way, Mark. Really appreciate it.
I'm waiting for Larry to do the All-Star Evita tour in the United States because I want to play Perron.
Perfect.
Oh,
so play Perron, you know what I mean? And I was in the film. So when you do the tour, Larry, the aging Evita All-Stars, I remember.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
may
so
all
this is-
need a walker.
So this is why he's here. He's campaigning for a new role in a new production, eh, Mark?
It never stops. It never stops.
Oh
Wayne, are you
gosh.
there?
Yes.
Hi, Wayne.
Hey,
How
Wayne.
are you,
Peace.
John? How are you, everybody? Good to see you all.
Yay.
Hi, Wayne.
Hello. I have a little vocal problem today. Thank God I don't have to sing. Remember the high seas? What are they, like 42 or something?
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, my story, I have many, many stories, but one of my best stories was with Lonnie after the show. I had this old gremlin car and it broke down on Little Santa Monica Boulevard. And behind me was Lonnie Ackerman in high heels, who got out of her car and helped me push my gremlin, you know. So Lonnie I was in awe of her as watching her. She was amazing. But to have the star of the show actually stop in the
Push your
middle of the
car.
street with her high heels and help me push my gremlin, I thought was exceptional.
In my way.
Yeah. I know. I'm sorry. You're still pushy.
He's not back me. Now he's my manager and he just
Yes,
yells at
now
me.
I'm her manager. And I will tell you, she is unmanageable. No, we have a great time. It was a great joy when she said to me, there's this older woman, would you take her on? I said, who? She said, me. I said, are you kidding? Of course. Yes. She had, I think George had just finished college, wasn't it, Lonnie?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
he was going to college and I
Oh, he's
thought,
going.
okay,
Okay.
I'm going back now. And first audition, oh, you're not dead? And Mariette, I got pregnant too. I did. And one night I chose between Jack and the show. I thought, if I go out there tonight, I'm so anxious, I'm going to lose this baby. And I said, Nancy, you're on for the second act, Nancy Opal. And that was it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, it was
Georgie.
the Los Angeles company was a great company. We had so many amazing people. And Sal and I had done a show years before, and it was such a joy to work with him again in the show. And we've remained friends over the years. And with Larry, Larry, you were at UCLA, right? And I worked with you. You had me come in for your directing class and stuff, and that was a joy too. That was great. So anyway, we had great times in LA, and it was
Wayne, excuse me.
Yes.
Tell the story about the lingerie.
Marabou, the
Yeah.
Marabou story.
Oh God.
So I was one of the suitors, the last suitor, who everyone in the show will remember has the Marabou because Lonnie is, the Ava is supposed to be changing, and the last suitor.
It's in a revolving door.
It's in the revolving thing, yeah. The last suitor has a Marabou and waves, and then is supposed to come out as the last suitor. Well, there was a little accident backstage. The roof of that thing caved in on my friend Mark Bradford. I was so flummoxed that I then came out as the suitor with the Marabou, except I didn't know it. And all I saw, I had no idea. All I saw was all these people on stage were looking at me, laughing at me. And I'm going, what is so fucking funny? I couldn't figure out what was going on until we exited right, as I remember, and we like marched off and had to lift our arms like this. And then I saw the Marabou, and then I was like, oh my God.
Out, and he gives me a picture and I'm supposed to sign it. And he presents the picture, and I see this marabou sleeve. I'm done. And then John Holmes next to me is done. The more harder we tried to sing, the worse it got. I couldn't breathe. I was laughing so hard. And my future husband is like on the dials mixing the show saying, what is wrong with them? Why are they not singing? And we're like, and until he saw his hand, and you ran off the stage before
Right.
everything.
I was totally clueless until I saw it, and then it
Oh
was,
my God. Oh, wait, that was one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Well, and when he marched the other way, and all the paramilitary went one way, and Wayne went the other.
Yes, I remember that.
that was another issue. You know,
Yes,
we were
going on in the first row with 2 girls and a guy.
Oh yes.
And they were policemen, and they were having a pleasurable time.
Yes.
I'm the only one who didn't see it. I was so committed to my acting.
Yes.
Commitment, folks. Oh, Wayne, that was wild. Do you have any other tidbits for us, Wayne, or shall we go to our next victim?
No, I think I can't top that one.
That's it's hard to do. So is Nancy Wood still here?
Yay!
Yeah, I'm
Nancy
here.
Wood.
Hey, Nancy.
Hey, everybody. Wow, it's so great to hear everybody's stories, and thank you so much for inviting me here. So my story was, and I don't know if Larry remembers this at all, but I was at the Schubert Theater playing Christine in a chorus line. And my ex-husband was going to be doing the sound. He was already talked about doing the sound in London. So one night after the show, Jonathan and I were having dinner, and sitting next to me was literally like a foot away was Hal Prince and Stephen Sondheim. And I'm like, okay. So anyway, because of my ex-husband's encouragement, decided to help me write a letter to Hal Prince. And I did. And because I'm extremely shy anyway, so I wouldn't have done it without his encouragement. And so we wrote a letter, and I said, my husband is going to be working on a show in London. Is there any way that I could audition for you? Oh, I forgot to say, yeah, they were doing On the 20th Century, and they were rehearsals at the same time. So we go back, so we found a hotel, dropped it off the front desk, and we get back to the apartment, and I get a call, and it's, hello, is Nancy there? And I'm like, yeah, this is me. He says, this is Hal. And I'm like, oh my God. Hi, Hal. So, I was like, how are you? So he said, can you come down tomorrow and audition for the show? I'm like, sure. So anyway, Eddie Strauss, may he rest in peace, was our keyboardist, and he quickly transcribed Another Suitcase, Another Suitcase, Another Hall. And so went down to the Schubert, to their theater, I forget what the theater was, and they all broke, and Eddie came out and played Another Suitcase, Another Hall, and I sang, and I don't know, that was it. They said, okay, great, thanks so much, and that was it. So we went off to London, and I didn't even know if I was doing this or not, and I was in. I just got in, and I was the original understudy to Siobhan, who she and I have remained extremely good friends throughout the years. And I thanked her very, very much because, not for that, we were talking the other day, and she had tonsillectomy. She had a lot of tonsil problems. So I went on a lot for Siobhan. And I had just done a course line there, so I was able to work there. So Larry, I don't know if you remember, do you remember this at all? And I thought, oh my gosh, how did they know I even dance? I was also a swing originally. So anyway, that's what started, me off in the show. And then when it was planning to go to New York, we were invited along with Pepe Borza and John Yost to join the New York company. So I feel very blessed and very excited, you know, to have had the opportunity to be a part of both the original London and the original Broadway show. So yeah, you know, what can I say? It was an extremely amazing experience, very different for me, because I found it was a different energy and a different presentation in London. And it kind of changed a little bit when we got to America. It was, to me, it just seemed a little bit more operatic, a little bit more concert, was a little bit more rock and rollish and a little bit raw in the original production. But yeah, there's so many crazy stories. I just, one thing that always stuck in my mind, I remember how Prince always saying, they drink a lot of tea here. Every time you go to rehearsal, you go to the rehearsal, you have a cup of tea. Then we something, and then we have a cup of tea. Then we have lunch, then we come back, we have a cup of tea, and then we rehearse, and then we have a cup of tea and we go home. So I don't really remember that, but I just remember, I was thinking there's a lot of tea drinking going on over here. So I remember that. I also remember one of the times I had to go on for Siobhan, and well, the first time I had to go on for Siobhan, I was so nervous, and I was like, oh my God, I'm sitting in the bed in the wing, and I couldn't remember the first line of my song. I was like, oh, I can't remember. And there was the entire cast in the wing. I mean, including Joss Ackland, David Essex. I mean, the entire cast, except I think Elaine. And they were just rooting me on, and it was just such a beautiful thing. And I was like, what's my life? I reeled out, and miraculously, as it happens, you know, I remember my first night. And one other story, if I may, is I decided to go get my hair permed, and didn't know what I was in for. A very straight hair, as you can see. And I went off to East London somewhere, and I came back, and my my ex dropped the pan in the house and said, go straighten your hair. My hair was an afro without a style. It was kind of like a box. I looked kind of like a toaster. But I'm like, oh my God, I cried my eyes out. I called Vidal Sassoon. What do I do? Then I get the great call from the show. Siobhan's off. Great. So I had to go to the show, and I remember crying my eyes out. I said, I can't go out with my hair being like a toaster. And so with much much encouragement, I think Sam said, you can go on with I had a scarf on for the mistress. So I thought, oh my God, my hair. Anyway, those are just some silly stories, but anyway, that's my, you know, Larry, you know, thank you for hiring me. You know, I don't know if it's showing a chorus line or whatever, but the fact that it's so great to see you. You look fantastic. And it's just so,
thank you.
Know, all these years. Well, thank you. And so blessed. So thank you for this opportunity. That's it. That's all I have to say for now.
Oh, thank you for that, Nancy. That was brilliant. Thank you.
Nancy. And I have to say, when I was 14 years old, I went to see Starlight Express in London, and there was a little sign on the board that said the role of Pearl is going to be played by Nancy Wood today. And I remembered you from the Evita cast album, and I was so excited. I was telling my mother, oh my God, Nancy Wood from Evita is going to be Pearl today. I was very excited and loved it. I was right down front and just was thrilled. So thank you for a wonderful afternoon in the theater.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad you got to see me on for Pearl. That was kind of cool.
It was a blast. It was a blast. And I mean, I was already a big Stephanie fan, and you know, I'd heard her on the album and such, but you knocked it out of the park. It was just beautiful. It's one of those things I always warn people who are quick to run to the exit when there's an understudy or an alternate. It's like, you should stay because this person is going to be awesome. And I hope I've, you know, convinced the people of that over the years, because so many people are just too quick to turn around and run. So let's see, moving on to our next. We've had a couple of folks that had to leave, unfortunately. But if Rob Alton is still with us, you're on, sir.
Okay. One of the things that occurred to me was when Mark Ryan, about how fortunate we all were to have this experience. And that's certainly what it was like for me too. So many times you're in a production of something and the publicity is bad, or the set is horrible, or the costumes don't fit, or and you find yourself doing more things in the production other than your part. But for this experience of Evita, all you had to do was your thing, because everybody else was so excellent at what they were doing. It was just a remarkable experience. I think the highlight of it all for me was that my wife was in the show too. Dee Dee played practically every female role except for the mistress and Evita and the another suitcase, another hall character, the mistress. But it was amazing because our son was also born to us when we were doing the show. I was in the show from 79 through, I think, 91.
Wow.
I played it on and off all over the place. Was lucky to do the second national tour with Val and with Tony and John Leslie. It was just an amazing experience. I could tell you a little bit of, I'd love to tell you the whole story of how I heard about the show and how I got the part, but it's about a 20-minute story, so I can't do that. But suffice it to say that the end is that I found myself auditioning in New York in the wrong theater 10 minutes before my audition time.
No.
So I basically had a heart attack when I found out that I was going over the part again, because they brought me in. What happened was I was filling in for Bob Gunton, who was getting married. And so they were giving him 2 weeks off for his honeymoon. And so so here I am, I'm making my Broadway debut between Patty and Mandy on Broadway a month after the show has won all gazillion Tony Awards. And gosh, I'm losing my train of thought here. Anyway, that was amazing in and of itself. But what happened was that I was going over the numbers because I'd been in rehearsal to go on into the show, which I did for 2 weeks, and I'd been rehearsing out on stage at the Broadway Theater, getting ready for my audition, and no one had shown up. I thought it was just going to be Hal and a couple of people or something. They had changed the time on me the day before, but they had forgotten to tell me that it was at the Uris Theater. Fortunately, Susan Chella, who was going back into the show that night, passed the stage manager's office where I was having a cigarette, and I said, boy, we had to miss our original audition. And so I said, you know what, I think they just told me an early time because they wanted to be sure I'd show up and I'd be here when they needed me to audition. And she said, well, I think the callbacks are at the Uris Theater. So I very quickly walked over there. I walked into the stage door and I could hear people saying, Rob Alton, because they're searching the theater, hoping that I'm there somewhere. I walked out on stage and I sang everything because they had said, can you learn as much of Perone, just sing everything that you know. So I did. And then when I finished, Hal said, that was great, Rob. Do you know anything else? And I said, no, that's really all I'm really comfortable singing for you today. And he said, well, that was great, Rob, but we'll get back to you. And I just stood there just dumbfounded because I didn't know what to do. Should I leave? Should I go? It was just go off into the wings and Howard will come and talk to you. So in a minute, Howard Haynes came backstage and he said, you got it. And I just levitated. I literally levitated. The stage manager took my hand and I remember us walking out onto the stage and I remember him pushing down on my hand so that I wouldn't fly up into the wings. And then Hal came down and I just, blubbered and said, I can't tell you how much this means to me. And he just said, oh no, Rob, we feel so fortunate to have found you, and Andrew Lloyd Webber was there, Ruthie was there, Gemignani, of course, had been working with me in Chicago. So it was an amazing experience, and Tony was amazing, Val was amazing. I've worked with everybody except Lonnie, I think, as Evita. I toured Europe with Flo all over the place, and it was just an amazing experience. I love all of you, and Larry, I especially love you because Larry directed one of the legs that I did in Europe, and he told me I didn't have to wear the nose anymore. And I went, thank you so much. So anyway, I love you all, and that's it for me. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Rob.
Sure.
Rob. It's amazing hearing everybody's stories. Thank you so much for sharing all of them with us. We'd like to ask Peter Carey to speak with us next. Another UK person.
Sorry about that. I've muted. Hello, everybody. Nice to meet
Peter.
you all. My dear friend Mark. I've known Mark for many, many years. We were managed by the same guy, as he was saying. And we met in a musical which led me into Evita. It was kind of funny. I was doing a narrator's job on James Dean, and Bob Schwartz came to see it, and then afterward I liked to audition for the up-and-coming show of Evita. So I ended up doing 7 auditions, and it was down to just 2 of us for the part of Che Guevara, because an American lady, I don't know who it was supposed to be taking over, Larry can probably tell you, the role, but then due to Andrew and Tim, they wanted Elaine, and so Elaine got it. She was unknown because I've been working with Elaine earlier on. She got it, and they had to get somebody that was kind of well known to do Che Guevara. And of course, David Essex stepped in, and that's when David got the role, which is great. They kindly turned around and gave me a role in Jesus Christ Superstar, which also Larry would tell you all about, I'm sure. And it was a great role. I ended up understudying Judas and got on and played Judas for a bit. And then I went off on a kind of tour during conference and came back and got a phone call.
Broadway.
Going and take over.
Everybody who came before I did, and my phone was dying, and I didn't know why, but I changed it. Yeah.
Sorry, Cliff. You okay?
I'm muted.
Okay. So I got a call from Bob Schwartz. Would I like to go in and an audition for Che Guevara again? So I did. They wanted somebody to cover a guy who was playing it. Was Jimmy Keane, who was a very good guy, and he was in Superstar as well. And so I went in as a walk-in cover for Che Guevara, and then did a lot of playing Che with the lady you were talking about, Siobhan, who was a good friend of mine and was married to the sound guy, Andrew Bruce. And then it had a knock-on effect. I ended up playing all the way through. For 3 years, I played in Che Guevara, and we ended up doing 2 UK tours. And so I had some wonderful times with it during that time. And I guess that's my story. I was very lucky. I ended up going on to play Jean Valjean in Les Miserables, and I also did that for 5-6 years. And then I went on to play Jesus Christ Superstar and played that for 10 years on and off, and did a lot of tour abroad. I went to Singapore and Hong Kong and Canada. I played a lot over there on both sides of the Canada coast. So a wonderful experience for me that I'll never forget. It was a wonderful show, and I loved every second. I had some funny moments when we were on tour, especially. It was became a dreaded moment to open the coffin in the opening number, Oh What a Circus, because there was some comedians in the show, and they started leaving things in the coffin. I opened it one night and there was a condom spread over. It's kind of difficult to keep a serious face. Another time there was a cigarette sticking out of her mouth, and kind of difficult. Those are kind of, we could glist past those, but I was very fearful of opening that damn coffin door. It all worked out in the end. It was great. And I won't stay on a long time because I know you've been here a long time already. I want to thank Rob for letting me be here, and it's been great. Thank you very much.
We so appreciate it. And Peter, you're another one of those people. I got a little piece of paper in my program in London when I was over there, and I saw you as Shay, and I saw you as the Phantom in Toronto, and marvelous as always.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here with us, Peter.
Yeah,
Really appreciate
good
it.
to see you. Looking great, dude. Looking great.
John,
Yes, ma'am.
can I give a very quick story about the coffin?
You may.
It's just really hilarious that you say that, Peter, because I remember when the four of us were invited to go to the United States, of course, the little pranksters going on, in the show. And one of them was in the opening, we were going around the coffin, and I kept seeing everybody like doing this thing. I thought, what are they doing? What is going on? And when I got there, pinned to the back of her head was, "You all come back now, here."
Oh my God.
I just had to say that. Okay, thanks for letting me say that.
You have to love the goings on in the theater. Is Tracy still here? Tracy Taylor? Tracy, are you with us? I think you may have had to go. But Julie Kirk, I know you're here. Okay,
Yes, I am.
Hi, Julie. Let's hear from you.
Well, I had the great pleasure of being in the original cast in London with Elaine Page and David Essex. And I probably would like to talk about my audition because it was the biggest thing in my life at that time. I was 19 and I was very green. I was from a very small town up in Lincolnshire, a seaside town. And I had done some provincial theatre, but I was desperate to get into the West End. And I remember going to I think it was Regent's Park, Larry, the first auditions. I don't even know if you were there, actually, but there were just hundreds and hundreds of girls. And I was just, oh my God. Anyway, I got through to the next round, and it just seemed to take forever because I was living in a flat in really outside of London in a place called Boston Manor. And I was living on top of an estate agent, and we had no phone, no landline at all. So every day I had to make sure I had the right coins and walk to the red phone box and phone the Robert Stigwood organisation and get through to the right person. It's Julie Kirk, I'm just ringing to see if I've got through to the next round. And then maybe they didn't know. They, "Oh no, darling, we don't know yet. Call tomorrow." Oh God, and it just went on and on. And this seemed to go on for about 6 weeks. I couldn't believe it because they wanted 7 dancers, 6 and a swing. 6 dancers, yeah, and a swing. And when I finally got to the finals, Larry, the final call, the final audition, which was at the Dance Centre in Floral Street in Covent Garden. Mm-hmm. Well, it was very much pinch me. But it was slightly marred for me by a very well-known magician.
Oh.
Paul Daniels was there, arsing about. I don't know what he was doing, himself or practicing, but he wouldn't leave me alone. And he was really distracting me because I wanted to, know that routine 100%. I really was hungry and I wanted that job so much. And he just, every time I came out of he was hanging around me going, "Oh, well, if you don't get it, darling, I'll take you out for dinner. But even if you get it, I'll take you out for dinner." And he wouldn't let me leave. I've got hair in my mouth. Anyway, he was just really, and of course now in hindsight, I wish I'd been brave enough, but at 19 you wouldn't tell him to, sling his hook. But he just was bugging me so much, and I was trying to concentrate so much. Anyway, when I finally did that final lineup, Larry, in a very small studio.
Yes, I remember.
Job. I absolutely was so thrilled to walk out and say to Paul Daniels, "I'm not coming out with you. I'm going out to celebrate with my friends. I've got the job." I was so thrilled. And well, I've never been able to thank you, Larry. So thank you. It was one of the highlights of my career. And I did the first 6 months. I was the first person to leave after David Essex because my agent, I didn't want to leave, but my agent had already secured another role, a leading role for me. But I did get the chance to be invited back very quickly, actually, after I'd finished the other show I was in, which was only a short period run. I got a phone call from the Stigwood office saying, by then I'd moved and I was in a flat in Fulham and I had a phone, and I got a call from the Stigwood office saying, could you could you just come in for 6 months? Because they didn't really tell me what had happened, but I'd heard on the tom-toms, on the grapevine, that 2 of the dancers, do you remember this, Nancy Wood? 2 of the dancers had been caught moonlighting, doing the Royal Variety Show round the corner in the Palladium on a Saturday night by our very lovely Chris Lloyd Pack, the company manager. I'm not going to name the names of the girls. Highly unprofessional darlings, but they were caught. He saw them in his dressing room on the telly that night, and they were sacked immediately. And that's why I got the call, come and take over. So that was very exciting, except what they did do was they rang me and kept saying, oh, Julie, don't sign the contract, don't sign the contract. We know you've been offered our parts. We're going to beg our jobs back. So they did sign the contract though. But they got their jobs back. And then suddenly I was superfluous. And I couldn't go back in the dancer's room because I wasn't welcome, which was a shame. Because I'd done absolutely nothing wrong. These girls, they weren't speaking to me. They sent me to Coventry, which was really naff.
Oh no.
So then it was like, well, what do we do with Julie Kirk? She signed a contract. We've got to employ her for 6 months in Evita. So I had to go into the singers' dressing room, which was fabulous because I wasn't a singer, but primarily a dancer who could sing. It was fantastic. The singers were brilliant with me and really were very welcoming. But I was a bit of a loop, felt a bit weird at that time. But it was just, I also remember Maggie Thatcher was our Prime Minister and the miners' strike was on. And it was, I just remember feeling hugely guilty coming out of the stage door in Soho. First of all, the miners were on strike, but also the bin men were on strike. I don't know if you remember, Nancy and Mark, but we were coming out to such a stench outside our stage doors because the bins weren't being emptied. And I just remember feeling really guilty that I was earning so much money for having a whale of a time, enjoying myself. Hopefully entertaining lots of other people, but I remember feeling compromised because there were people starving and really struggling for the money, and I remember that very much, but that was my first West End show, and I don't know if I could ever top it. I went on to work for the Royal Shakespeare Company in a musical, Poppy the musical, but it was never the same because this was just incredible. Opening night was, I come from a very, very small family, and it was like Christmas. It was just, the presents were just like, I couldn't believe it. And the quality of the presents, it was just, oh my gosh, no one's ever bought me this. I was just in another world. So thank you, Larry, for choosing me.
You're very welcome. You earned it.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that with us, Julie. That was wonderful. Thank you.
That was wonderful. We appreciate it. And that is my whole list of people to pick on. But if there's anybody that has not had a chance to go or that I've accidentally skipped, please speak up or else we'll move on.
Well, I have a quick question that is on behalf of, yes, for me. This is actually one that was what Sam Madge, who was the original stage manager from the London production, was going to ask you, Mr. Larry Fuller, was that he remembered being instructed that him and whoever else in the crew were to make some boleros, some Argentinian boleros,
oh, the boleros, yes.
That you were going to use in one of the numbers. So he was going to, we were all curious as to which number were they going to be using before Hal nixed them for being too dangerous.
Wow. Actually, I nixed them.
Oh, did you? Oh, right.
I got into pre-production. And I tried using him. I thought, this is really dangerous. If they don't kill themselves, they'll kill somebody else. So I decided to cut them in one day. And they were originally supposed to be gauchos. so that they would stand out from the other people. And Hal said, "Oh, don't make them gauchos. I don't want them in those traditional costumes. Just make them, you know, like sleazy guys and who are in the streets of Buenos Aires, who are, you know, making out with her." And so that's how they got the name Slouchos.
Right.
Gauchos and sleazy.
So were they to be used in the Buenos Aires number then, Larry, originally? Was that the idea behind the
bolos?
The
yes.
bolos, yeah. Brilliant.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Is it okay if I ask a quick question to Larry Fuller?
Sure.
Hi, I just want to say I've been obsessed with your choreography for Evita for like years, like really disturbingly obsessed. And I always had a question. Did you have to do a lot of changes to Buenos Aires between London and American premiere? Because I know the orchestrations and the tempo evolved. So I was wondering, did you need to do a lot of adjustments to make it match the new orchestrations?
Actually not. I don't know if you were on when we started this, and I spoke about when we were doing the rehearsals before we opened in London, that Buenos Aires had 14 different versions before we settled on one. And that's not to say the whole number was different. No, there were just sections in it that got changed and changed and changed, so that what I was trying to portray really was like a ballet telling a story. And so I kept changing it until I made it clear, at least in Hal's eyes, what I was doing. And as far as changing it in New York, we didn't. It, you know, it was the don't mess around with love. If it works, keep it. And the one thing is, in London, I tried changing the end of Buenos Aires so that instead of going down, so to speak, vocally, just a little touch of Starquala T. I tried to give it a period so that she sang it an octave higher, and that maybe it would elicit more applause, because the dancers and her had just killed themselves for 8 minutes. And it's the first time the audience is allowed to applaud in the show, 20 minutes in. And it didn't really work. It was too traditionally Broadway musical. So I put it right back the way it was originally and stayed that way.
And that's actually pretty ironic, because that's what they're doing now. Like ever since the revival, they've been doing what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
The high note at the end.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
they
know.
changed
Andrew
it.
put that in, because when we did it, we did a company
Sure he
in
did.
Africa, in Johannesburg, about 4 years ago, and then it toured all around the place. And that was, he had rewritten some of the arrangement for BA, which I was not totally happy with, I have to say. But that's what Andrew sent, so that's what we had to do. And they had Emma. Pardon?
Oh, it's
Kingston.
on the tip of my tongue.
Emma Hatton?
Yeah,
Emma
Emma
Kingston.
I think it was,
No,
I think
Emma
it was Emma
Kingston.
Kingston.
Yeah.
Anyway, the end of BA is she ends it with a high note now.
Yeah, I don't want to like carry off or go too off topic, but the production, the one that you did, for the one that toured and that went to Australia, it was just a little surreal for me, because it used the score and the script of the revival, but like with your original staging and visuals, and that was a little strange. I think your production works perfect with the original orchestrations, but it was a little surreal, like watching this combo.
Thank you. But Andrew wasn't there when we rehearsed and opened in Johannesburg, so I couldn't really talk to him. I mean, and convince him that we needed to go back to the way it was. But it worked anyway.
I have another question for Larry. I just was wondering, how do you feel when regional theatre companies or community theatre companies want to recreate your choreography and yours and Hal's staging? Do you find that flattering, or do you think that for them, when people say, "Oh, we want to do Evita, but we want to do their version," do you feel that as a huge compliment?
Well, of course, it's a compliment that they want to do the original instead of something else. But it also, I found over the years, especially in the first, say, 10 years, because it was being done everywhere. And Civic Light operas that would play it for like 12 performances, our summer production that would be 2 weeks or whatever. And they would steal the work and put their name on it. And that that did upset me.
That's a no-no.
I wouldn't upset me if they say originally done, choreographed by Larry Fuller, directed by Hal Prince, but they didn't give us credit for it. And therefore we also got no money. And it wasn't even so much the money because it ran for such a short amount of time. It was just that it was counterfeited, so to speak. Anyway.
Well, I have a
credit
question I actually have a question for Larry and some of the Avas on the board. I know Valerie left. What was it like to revisit it, or how much rethinking did you do with subsequent productions that you were involved with?
I never really wanted to change it because, as I said a little earlier, don't fuck around with love. I mean, it worked. And every time you tried to adjust it here or there, it just felt wrong. The rhythm of it just had its own pace and its own style. And if you screwed around with it, it didn't work as well.
If it ain't broke.
One region.
Yeah.
And the director decided, I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
Right.
The director decided that every costume that Ava would wear would represent the color of blood. So I'm not kidding. So it started with Buenos Aires dress in bright red. And I mean, the gown was white. Okay, and then there was a richer color of red for the movie star, for the radio star. By the time we got to the death robe, the color was of dried blood. It was so, and then one of the greatest finales in musical theater history, they wanted the Che to wheel the deathbed off the stage into the wings instead of just leaving it there. Oh yeah, but I thought, oh, what have I got to do? So they'll fire me. I don't care. I did the show with Larry and Hal, and that's fine. And we stood there. Tim Bowman was Che, and we said,
Oh,
no,
I love Tim.
no, we
Me
can't do that. Oh, we had a great time. So yeah, and Peter, talk about pranks. My purse on the Rainbow Tour, every now and then it would be vibrating. Larry didn't know this. Total, and I would open it, and there would be a very long, thick, dark-colored vibrator that had been the shape of part of the, your anatomy.
Fantastic.
Stuff like that.
I mean, your penis.
I thought you meant pager. No, I didn't.
I believe we've got a question from Raj. Raj, are you there with us? You'd have to unmute yourself.
Oh yeah, sorry. Hang on. Where am I?
We can hear you, Raj.
Okay. Okay. I had a question about. I don't know if anyone's still. My screen's not got everyone on the screen yet, but if there's still people from the original London company, I'm interested to know. Did you get a copy of the 10-minute applause on opening night that David Land made? And
no.
No, because Elaine keeps talking about it, and I saw a copy that went on eBay like ages ago, and I thought I don't know, I think it went for something ridiculous, so I never bothered bidding. But I was always just intrigued by what that must have sounded like, because apparently the opening night applause just went on and on and on. And apparently, supposedly, I don't know if this is exaggeration, it went on for about 10 minutes or so. And then David Land recorded it. And I understood he made a present of it to the people in the original company. But
Mark would probably know about that. Do you remember that happening, Mark?
Yeah, it was one of the most intense. I think everybody was just relieved that the show was being received so well by an actual audience. We'd had previews and stuff like that, so we knew, you know, where it was settling. And like Larry said, you know, it was kind of perfect. It was just under 2 hours. I think the first act was 57 or something like that, and the second act was 50. I don't know, Sam would know exactly the times, but it was a 2-hour show. Bang, bang, bang. Starts with a funeral, goes downhill, gets worse, and then you get a standing ovation. So it was intense. And I remember the party afterwards. I love David Land, by the way. Just if you
me too.
David was absolutely one of the smartest guys I've ever met, and he was very kind to me. So David was a good man. But I remember going on the party on the boat.
He was.
But he was.
Absolutely.
Yes, he was.
He was, absolutely. I really liked him very much.
Lovely man. I remember being in his office once, and they were going on about the Spanish show, and I don't know why I was in there talking to him, and the secretary kept coming in, and we were just talking about the show, and maybe it was before I took over Shay or something, and he just said, stop, tell them to wait. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't want to disturb you, David, if you're working. He said, if the answer's got to be now, it's got to be no. And I walked away from that and went, I'm going to use that. If the answer is now, it's got to be no. And so David was a very smart, but a lovely, lovely man. And we ended up on this boat. If anybody remembers, Larry, and anybody from the UK now.
The boat still exists, by the way. They're still using it for parties and things. And
they brought it up the River Thames. They had to lift up the famous, Tower Bridge to get the Serena in. And we partied on this boat, and anybody, including John Travolta and just about everybody else, the Bee Gees, everybody was at that party. And it was the most insane evening.
And it was pouring rain.
In the pouring rain. And I actually went out because I had to slap myself because, again, as a boy from Doncaster, I was like, you better remember this, because I think I still have a matchbook which I stole from the boat, just a little book of matches. And I went out, and there were two of those wooden Reaver speedboats that you see in all the classic films, like Some Like It Hot and all that kind of stuff. Absolutely beautiful, the antique speedboat. And I was stood there looking at it, and Stigwood wandered out, and we were looking at the boat. And he said, "You into boats?" I said, "Yeah, I love boats. I've been into boats all my life." He said, "She's." I said, "This is absolutely beautiful, and a beautiful antique. What year is it?" He said, "Oh, it's 1930 something, or 37 or something." Just chatting about it. And I said, "I bet it goes like a rocket in the water." And he went, "Put it in the water? Are you out of your mind? This is a real boat. I'm not going to put it in the water. Are you crazy?" So he never put his antique speedboat in the water. No, it was one of those nights that you just have to put it in its box. And we all got little gold medallions. We all got the music box. We all got the box of champagne. I still have all of that stuff in my apartment in Los Angeles. All the little gold tokens that we got. Just an amazing night. But the relief, I think, was palpable, particularly for Andrew, Larry. If you remember, Andrew was certainly in a state, was wandering around backstage, apparently. I got from other people literally going, I think it was going to be utter disaster. And of course it wasn't. So there was, I may be wrong. And Andrew, if you're listening to this, don't sue me, because you've got one. So anyways, there was a lot of pressure, but it was an amazing night. And I remember that applause.
I'm going to get my music box.
Get your music box.
Oh, he's going to get his music box. He's got it.
I never got my mother stole it. And the other thing I remember about that night was that Tim came round to everybody's dressing room, and he literally stayed talking to my mother for about 15 minutes. He just stood and chatted to my mum for about 15 minutes about the show and about everything else. And he had this music box, and he gave me the music box. My mother literally just went, she took it out of my hands. And I never saw it for 30 years. It was, up at the house in Doncaster, and that was it. No, Tim was a gentleman, but I think Andrew was having a little bit of a conniption that night. But, there you go.
Hey there.
Oh, there it is.
Amazing.
Wow.
Amazing.
Can I jump in really quickly, if you don't mind? This is for Donna Marie. I was 13 years old. It was my first Broadway show, and you came to Worcester, Massachusetts for one day. It was May 5th, 1985. Evita was in Boston when I was 11, and it was my first show, and I fell in love with it. And I saw you. It was the first show I saw, and I waited by the stage door for your autograph. And I don't know if you'd remember that or not.
Oh my God.
But you really had a major impact on my life and how I thought about theater and performers. And I just wanted to put that out there. It was a long time ago, but you were my first Ava and will always be the best for me.
Oh, you're so sweet.
I just wanted to recognize that moment and what an impact it had on my life as a very young 13-year-old, you know, seeing his first show for the first time, and a show that I was obsessed with. I think every gay boy in the late 70s was obsessed and wanted to be Evita. But you,
there's a lot of pictures of them in white dresses.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, like
And
you,
now cast members.
the clump. When I direct a musical right now, every musical I direct has to have a clump in it, and that was really based on what I saw with your choreography with Peron's
That's right.
And Lonnie Ackerman. I remember reading an interview you did with Playbill magazine back in the 80s, and you talked about how playing the role of Ava saved you a fortune on therapy, and it always something that stuck out in my mind. And I kind of feel like I'm with Broadway royalty right now, and I just thank you for the opportunity to say something. And Donna Marie, you were, oh, that was an impression. And for some reason, I have every program from every show I saw, and that one I think my brother threw away on me. But that is a memory that I'll always treasure, and I want to thank you for that. And to see you here today was just amazing. So thank you.
No, thank you. That means so much to me. You'll never know it. And, you know, it was such an important part of all of our lives. And to have Larry here so we can, you know, publicly acknowledge how brilliant he was and how loyal he was. And, you know, it's just, I have so many amazing memories from the show and doing it. But I have to say, and I don't know whether, you know, other Avas will agree, like I woke up with phlegm this morning, just knowing that I was going to talk about the show. I swear to God, I was like, wait.
The word, the goddess of phlegm. Never leaves you. I remember
it doesn't.
We were doing the end of the first act and we were in the church. And it was the first time, you know, you turn with your back to the audience. And for some reason, I put my hands on my hips and I immediately knew that was wrong. And as he came up to me, I said, I know, the king and I. And just very quietly, just walked right up behind me and said, I know, king and I. Yes, which is what I was obviously living at the time, but got out of that. Anyway. Larry was always calm. You still
yes,
and generous, and just got right to the point. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't kick so high, Lonnie. She's not a dancer.
I have to go. Because we're an hour in front of London here, so my baby daughter's screaming that she wants to go to bed, so I have to go and take care of my little
Okay.
I just wanted to say it's so wonderful to see you all after all this time, 40 odd years. I wish Andrew and Tim had done something for the 40th London anniversary. They didn't. I know they did it for Broadway. Maybe they'll do it for the 50th one if we're all still alive, and then we can all come back again and do it again. But it was so great to see so many people from that magical, insane time, that little magical box of time. Anyway, I've got to go. So, but guys,
Thank you, Mark.
Great to meet you.
So thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Be safe. Be safe.
Bye. Thank you.
And I think we had one last audience question from Marcus. Did you get a chance to ask yet, Marcus?
No, I haven't. I'm such a huge Evita fan. I actually read both the biography and listened to the soundtrack at the same time. That was the only way my parents were gonna buy me the soundtrack. So I have a question for the Avas. Because Evita was such a complex woman, was there any particular factoid that you came across or any particular lyric that just anchored your interpretation?
You want to go first, Donna?
Wow. Well, I just remember, it wasn't something that, I mean, I read everything I could get my hands on, but I remember, and Lonnie probably can attest to this, but Hal played an original recording of Ava in the rehearsal.
Yeah.
Right? And she
The final
was...
Yeah.
Well,
she was speaking.
Four
yeah.
speeches.
Okay. Yes. But I just remember, and it made sense to me because the way she was speaking and her pitch and it was almost like a scream. That finally, it made sense because I was like, why would Andrew write it this high? It's like, it's just mean. It's just wrong. But hearing her speak and the amount of emotion that she was emoting just from her voice alone, that's what I really tried to carry with me all through the piece.
Yeah, the four speeches, but the quality, vocal quality was different in each one. There was a youthful one. There was more mature. There was the balcony, and then there was the last broadcast.
The final, yeah.
Broadcast. And I think Donna and I, coming from the dance world first, I put that in my body. I put the sound in my body, and I tried to find. My favorite part was High Flying Adored, because that was her most vulnerable.
Mine too. I love that.
Me too. The Cinderella moment, and when Mariette was talking about the Cinderella moment, I remember coming out through the door the first night of dress rehearsal, and there was the Cinderella moment that Hal had said, and I got stuck in the door because I had so many crinolines that I couldn't get
Or Lonnie, or you would walk and you'd step on the crinoline and you'd get shorter and shorter and shorter because so you had to kick the damn dress out as you were walking and trying to look so regal.
Yes, Cinderella, it's not easy to be Cinderella.
No.
But I tried to find the vulnerable part of her because she couldn't have children. She did everything for children, whatever her momentum was, or whatever her, oh God, I have no words.
Motivation.
Motivate, thank you.
You're welcome, darling.
Okay.
I'm your little sister. I'll keep you on track.
Using words right and left.
Me too.
Oh, so that's what I took, and that spiral down, that she still kept fighting. It's all written. It's all there. It's so it's so clear that you really just had to immerse yourself in the clothes, of course, and then just go for it. You know, not that I'm being superficial, but it was there. You didn't have to work that hard to put her across.
You trusted the material because it was all there.
Yeah, it was absolutely just all there, just perfectly written. And I lucked out. I really did. In so many ways, but just lucked out with Larry and Hal and Donna and I had a great time, and Kelly and Sal. It was a carousel.
Yeah, totally. Can I tell a story about Lonnie and the coffin?
Sure.
Okay, and I don't know if Lonnie will remember this, but it was going to be my last show as the alternate at Paper Mill, and I wanted to put I put a Polaroid of myself in lingerie with the ponytail out, smoking Chase cigar, just. It was practically a crotch shot, but not. But I told Lonnie I wanted to do this, and she knew that I didn't have a poker face. So she would have me come into her dressing room after every show and sort of run it with me and go, okay, because they're going to laugh and you can't, because really Ava's just standing there as everybody said, by the coffin, Ava just there. So she literally tutored me on this prank that I was going to do for the company, because she was like, I know you're going to break, so come in my room.
You can't
remember that?
As long as you don't laugh. And Larry
Exactly.
will never hire us again because he knows all
all the secrets
No,
now.
I had no idea all this was going on.
Oh, there's more. There's a whole other show.
And lyrics to go with it.
You and West Side, you and West Side Story. There are a lot of stories about you.
Oh, I'll bet.
We do want
If you don't mind, I just quickly want to say that years later, after I had finished Evita, I did it for about 2.5 years. I started working on the Night of 1,000 Voices at Royal Albert Hall with choirs from around the UK, and I was asked to do Don't Cry for Me, Argentina. So I did it center stage at Royal Albert Hall for many years. But then I was so honored to be asked to sing it at a tribute to Hal Prince in Munich. And
Wow.
I walked out, and I knew Hal was there, and I thought, oh God, here I am, the little mistress singing Argentina. I hope this goes well. And Charlie Prince was conducting, and I sang it, and it went so well. And afterwards, Hal said to me, well, Kelly, that was absolutely beautiful. And I said, well, I learned from the best. Every Ava that you've talked about, maybe not a couple of them, but most of them,
Yeah.
I worked with. I mean, before I was a mistress, I stood, below the Casa Rosada, and I watched Lonnie do it, and Valerie do it, and Flo do it, and Darren Alte do it, and every other one that came along in that 2.5 years that I did it. So I was well prepped. And one more story about. I mean, I got to stand below you and watch you in your glory for so long, and you taught me so much, my dear. You taught me so much. Thank you.
Well, everybody, I think we've reached the end for today, but thank you all so much. Thank you, Larry.
I want to say one thing, John.
No,
I started the group to celebrate all these people that I have now. I'm gonna get emotional. I followed your careers from day one. I've told Donna Marie privately and on the group. I saw you and blown away. We did a Evita or Bust road trip to see the show. Flash forward 20 odd years, my sister saw the show. She went to see it because I loved it. She loved you. Lonnie, same thing. I read the reviews, and my next trip to New York, and this was not a big thing. This was a big thing for somebody from a small town to go to New York in, the 80s. It's like, but I've got to see this Evita. And I not only went forward with your careers, I went back to your careers. We went, No, Nanette. I'm like, oh, there she is. Donna Marie, we went back to my dorm room and broke out merrily. And like, oh, that's her. Kelly
So we
James,
bought this
you were my
little
first
condominium.
I mean, and Larry, my God, you're a god.
I think there's so many of us on here who have so much love, and we can tell that you all on the panel have so much love and respect, not just for each other, but for the show itself. And it's obviously changed all of your lives for the better. And to echo Jeff and John and probably Jackie's feelings, because we've said this before, Jackie actually said this last time, it's just, Evita is a perfect piece of theatre. There isn't an ounce of fat on it. It's just it's such a unique piece of musical theatre, and you know, that comes down to Andrew and Tim and yourself, Laurie, and you know, the fabulous Hal Prince. All of you just seem to, you know, deliver something that is, you know, just so wonderful and so unique, and we all treasure it just as much as you guys treasure it, who have experienced being a part of it. So thank you from all of us, from Theatre Talk, from Evita High Flying Adored. Thank you all for joining us today. It means the world to us. The audience members, I don't know if to the audience members, thank you for joining in with us today as well. It's been quite a long evening, and thank you for your patience. I hope you've all enjoyed it as much as we've enjoyed hearing all of your stories. I think we need to wrap things up before we get cut off now, because I think we're running out of actual Zoom panel time. So thank you. God bless you all.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us.
Love you.
We're gonna keep bothering you.
Bonnie.